Welcome to We Need to Talk, the podcast that features a series of conversations aimed at shedding light on issues surrounding women. I am your host, Klean, and this is a space where women can discuss the issues we've been forced to barely whisper. As women, we know we need to talk means things are at a point where they must be addressed now. So join us as we tackle conversations that are necessary, even if they make you slightly uncomfortable. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of We Need to Talk. I am excited to have you join us for a week of insightful conversation. We are about to be enlightened. We are about to be educated, because this week we have in studio Mrs. Valinda Hodge. She is, well, I'll let her tell you what she is, but grab your drinks, grab a snack if you want, get comfy as we dive into We Need to Talk with Mrs. Valinda Hodge. Valinda, welcome.
Thank you so much. I am actually known as Valindula, and I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So you sort of got the ball rolling. You said Valindula, and that is because you are
I'm a certified birth doula, and I've been training now for I've been trained for about 2 years, and I also just finished up my master's in health and public service management. But most of my clients know me as Valindula. Well, they gave me that name. I was Valinda, and they were like, Valindula sounds good.
It just sounds so appropriate.
Rolls off the tongue.
Excellent. So, for the people who are listening and who may not know, tell us, what is a doula?
So a doula is traditionally a woman that supports another woman during labor. I provide emotional support and continuous labor support, which was a traditional thing at home. When we transitioned into the hospital where we have our babies now, we kind of got rid of the communal part. So doulas provide continuous labor support, we provide emotional support, and we provide education for women throughout the entire prenatal journey. We are not midwives. We are not clinically trained to bring babies into this world. We are there to hold the mom's hand and coach her through that journey.
I'm really glad that you explained that bit about not being clinically trained, not being there to deliver the babies, because I know sometimes people may conflate the two between a doula and a midwife. But I also want to go back to something that you mentioned, and that is the role of doulas and how they have evolved. Where initially doulas, when they were home births, and then we moved to a hospital setting. Now, I'm not sure what is the situation here in Anguilla, whether or not persons can have home births here, if it's something that is encouraged, or if it's something that we are seeing a move towards. Is that a trend that you are seeing, or if you can provide some insight on that?
Well, almost every time I introduce myself as a doula, it equates to home births, when it's not that way. Doulas support moms no matter where they choose to birth, and if they choose to have a child vaginally or a C-section. We meet them where they're at. The thing about home births here in Anguilla is, I think there's a liability clause, because when you are at a hospital, if something goes wrong, you probably will be protected on the medical professionals unions. And I think there is some law that prohibits persons intentionally having their children at home. We know about people having kids at home, but it's not encouraged, and I don't encourage it either. simply because if something goes wrong, you want to be in the safest place. So as a doula, we promote having babies in a safe space. And right now, Anguilla doesn't have a space where if something goes wrong at home or elsewhere outside the hospital, you can be transferred to the hospital because things do go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So home births right now is not a doula thing per
Okay.
se. It is if that is available in your country or where you live, yes, but at the moment not in Angola. And we would hope that it can happen. But like I said, I am not a midwife or a doctor. So I would still need someone medically trained to be there. So
really glad we touched there, because there is that issue where the differentiation of what is a doula, what is a midwife, and what is possible here, because we do see the rise in, I guess, maybe the popularity, and it may be for different reasons in countries like the US, where more persons are leaning towards having home births for different reasons. And those reasons, include, especially as Black women, as people of color in the US. I follow, I think her name is Elaine Welteroth, on Instagram, and she has, I'm gonna look it up. It's called the Birth Fund. She just launched this organization where it is really about supporting women in having babies in spaces that are alternative to hospitals. We have not gotten to the point here in Anguilla where we have things like birthing centers.
right.
And I know there's a whole plethora and range of different, I guess, spaces between the hospital and a home and a home birth.
Yep.
How do you, or where do you anticipate seeing Anguilla go in this?
Well, honestly, when I did my training, there was a book called Home Birth in the Hospital, where it basically explains that you can have the comfort of home in a hospital. So I am not sure how far or how progressive we can get in probably 5 years, I'll say. But what I would hope is that we have more options where women can be more comfortable in a hospital setting. That is not, even across the region, it's still not encouraged. And I think it has a lot more to do with our culture. You brought up the US, and the US has a different experience than the UK because they are not predominantly Black there. Just so you know, Black women are 4 times more likely to die of a complication in birth. And that's because we are either not listened to, our pain is dismissed, and it's never really a health issue, but it's that someone is not listening to our concerns. And in the Caribbean, although we have people that look like us supporting us, they're still trained in the culture to be dismissive of our pain and to be the strong Black woman. And so my thing about progressiveness, no matter where the setting is to give birth to a child, is to allow women the voice in that setting where they are bringing their child into the world. And it's not they are listening to the midwife or the OB or even a family member, because it has definitely seeped into our culture, even where we have family members supporting us where, don't cry, shut up, you're making too much noise.
Sorry, excuse me?
Yeah.
Wow.
So labor is not easy. That's why it's called labor.
It's hard.
It's very hard.
It's hard work.
It's very hard work. So
it is. And no matter which route you go, whether it's a natural,
it's a task.
It's all difficult.
So
in their own rights.
So my thing is not just to see birth centers, but to see what systems are already established, allow women to have more say in and give them options on being a little more comfortable, or a lot more comfortable in how they choose to birth.
So you speak about your training.
Mhm.
First, how did you even get into this? What led you to wake up one day? I don't know if it was waking up one day and say, I think I could be a doula.
How did I get here? So, in about 20 days around, so I will have a 9-year-old, and her name is Taylor. And my first birth experience was an experience where I did not have my child here. So I was already outside of my comfort zone. I was young back then. I was 20 something, but I was still new to this role. So I agreed to go overseas and have my child. But then I was outside of my comfort zone where I was in my family member's home, very much accommodating, but I felt homesick. And then I went to the hospital where I had to learn a new system. I had to get up to go to so many appointments. And I remember being in labor at home, and sorry, Auntie, but she was like, we are not going to the hospital until you start to cry, because I was exhausted. But we've already been there early in the morning. I wasn't progressing. And they usually send you back home until you're closer to full dilation. It's more comfortable at home.
Okay.
So instead of keeping you in bed at the hospital, they tell you go home. But I remember being very exhausted, and I remember being, led by everyone else around me, even in a moment of pain where I just want this baby out. So I went to the hospital, and my midwife that was to admit me told me I was crying too much. I was screaming too much. I need to relax. But it wasn't like, accommodating. It was like, you need to, I don't know anything about labor. Wow. Or contractions, or, So going into me having my first child, and then the postpartum experience of being up late at night, and my breast production, my milk production going down, and my boobs start sagging, I'm not eating. It was like, is this normal? And no one is really saying anything. And when I had my second child, I already did my research, and I remember thinking, why is it that we don't have these conversations about how pregnancy goes, how it affects your mental health, how it affects your physical health? When you say things to people, it feels like you are crazy to even think that you're struggling.
Yes.
Because no one is really acknowledging,
the real
that you are tired.
Yes.
And this baby won't stop crying. So my thing was, I didn't know there was a name for doula. Okay. I just knew that I began to talk about my experience, and people that were pregnant around my time was like, hey, I'm going through the same thing. Thanks for saying it out loud. Yes. So that was when I was like, okay, I need to look this up. I need to see if this is something that can work. And it's been there. It's been in our communities for forever. It's just has been removed because it's not clinically approved by the medical systems. But it's not about the clinical. It's about understanding a woman's body and allowing a woman to, be okay with saying, I'm not okay right now and I need help.
So a doula advocates, and it helps a woman advocate
for herself. We teach a lot of self-advocacy because we don't want to be your mouthpiece. We want you to be educated enough to speak on your own behalf. To know, I never asked for Pitocin, or like I didn't want to be induced. I didn't want a vaginal sweep. We talked about these things. Tell me about certain medical interventions in time that I can make a decision, or we can have this discussion before I go into active labor where I can't speak anymore. Right. So that this is what I want. I want to experience both. And you hear a lot of moms saying, because of medical interventions, they don't know what birth actually feels like. They went to sleep and they woke up and the baby was there, and now congratulations. Yeah.
And so a little bit of chills
Mm.
because it definitely brings to mind my own birthing experience, and it wasn't normal by any means. Having a baby at 26, almost 27 weeks, preemie baby, being told, we're going to keep you for a little bit. If this baby is born now, she won't live. And then coming back an hour later and saying, well, if we don't take her now, you both will die. So not mentally preparing for that. I will say, if there is one saving grace to my birthing story, is that I don't know what contractions feel like. And we're going to get into contractions a little bit later on, because there's some really exciting stuff that we are going to discuss when it comes to that. But I have no idea what the laboring process
period feels
felt like. And as you said, I was wheeled into a room, put to sleep, woke up in a different room. But given the circumstances, I remember my first question when I woke up, all stuck up with all sorts of stuff. Where's my baby? Is she alive? Because I had no idea. Thankfully she is.
Amen.
But it really does bring to mind that it wasn't necessarily, and again, I know that that's an extreme situation, but it wasn't a pleasant situation. It was definitely not one that I was prepared for.
Right.
And so doulas, they come in at what stage?
They can come in at any stage. The thing about a doula is we support you when you need us, and when you want us to go home and you don't need us anymore, we go home. Typically, I would start to support a mom, like being consistently there about 36 weeks, because that's when you probably will go into labor, you'll start to experience Braxton Hicks. But I have
Braxton Hicks. What are those?
It's
for those who don't know.
It's like fake contractions, but it's your body getting ready for the real party. So sometimes people are like, when they're close to your, we don't call it due date because we call it a guess date.
Guesstimate.
A guesstimate. Where your body is getting ready to understand what contractions actually feel like. So some people are like, are these contractions? Is it Braxton Hicks? Sometimes you don't know. I thought I was having Braxton Hicks with my second child. I was having contractions.
Oh.
So what do contractions feel like?
How about how about we just use this opportunity to kind of segue into a clip that you did on your page. You are the Caribbean doula on Instagram, but you also have Bare Necessities. But when we come back from this clip, we'll get into that a bit. But let's segue into a clip of something that you did recently. And let's let the audience see, and then we'll discuss it after.
I don't do it during the cramps. I work out. I don't work out. Yes, I do.
Welcome to part 2 of the contraction simulation with the TENS unit. How did we get here? Well, I started with my husband, who was not having a good time. Okay, now, so here's what you do to your hand. Put your nose out your mouth. It has become a very educational tool for men to see what we go through during labor. So let's just take a look. Need to hold your other hand?
No, I need to hold your hand.
Read the captions below to see my observations for the contraction simulation exercise.
Oh, I have to remember.
Breathe, rock, follow me, okay? Tap out whenever.
No problem. Hold on. Let me just... Seem bad, I don't feel nothing.
Breathe.
Okay.
Right. Where your face twitching.
Remember, rocking helps with it too, okay?
Rocking do it?
Rock, let it look.
Making your voice like you're doing hip thrusters.
Very good.
You look like I'm in a
Okay, okay, okay.
Look at me, look at me.
Okay.
Right.
Keep it right there. Keep it right there. Level 5 and up.
So level 6, okay?
Now you gotta make a man stop
Yeah.
flexing, man.
Keep
Come on,
talking.
you.
Wait.
Rock with it, rock with it, rock.
Stop there. Either they get your legs up.
What? Boy, stay. What you stop it?
Lean doing that now.
Stop it. Let's go.
Lunge doing that.
Why not?
Toss.
Naturally, women tolerate the pain more than men.
All my girls, all my ladies.
So Manny decided to show off.
Say your alphabet.
Hey.
You said you're soft. Are you
I'll
soft?
tell you your heart now.
What do you think about men when it comes to supporting women during contractions, though?
We should.
So we are laughing, because it is interesting to see how men handle this. And so tell us what it is that we just saw.
So, so as a doula, I did not want it to be a thing that I am just supporting the mom, because as much as I teach self-advocacy for the mom, I also teach advocacy for the supporting circle. So it's not just the dad, but the mother of the mother, or family member and friends that want to be involved in the entire experience. So my thing was to make dads aware of what we feel. So there's 2 different methods that I choose. One is the contraction simulator, and another method that I choose is I make dads put their hands in water with ice, and they can't take their hands out. And I keep telling them that this is what contractions are, or labor is. It's painful, but it's something that you have to go through until the ice melts. So it's like, I have to go through this and get through it in order to get on the other side, so that they understand that you can't just say, okay, the pain is too much, let's stop. So with those 2 methods, it makes dads understand, okay, I don't need to be so rigid. I need to understand what my partner is going through right now. And through the contraction simulator, some dads have tested the waters and realized they can't swim in these waters at all. They drown.
I know we saw some of the men. They started sweating.
Oh yes.
They can feel it, and it's really interesting to see how they react.
Yes.
To the stimulator, how they react to what is happening.
So,
and
it's a TENS unit, and what the TENS unit is, it gives you little electrical shocks, pulses, and it is actually used for athletes use it to help them cope with, I guess, after exercising. They put them on their muscles or on their abs, and moms actually use it during labor, where it is sending a different message to the brain, so that
it's a disruptor.
It's a disruptor while they're in labor. So I actually spoke to someone who used it. They were in England when they had their child, but they used it while they were in labor, and they said it was very effective. So instead of focusing on your contractions, it disrupts your brain and rewires it to focus on something else. So it's not far away from labor, because it is a tool, and it's a non-medical tool that I can use because it's not clinically used by practitioners or anything. And dads were like, I can do this, I can handle this pain. And then when I set it up, no, they can't.
Turn it off.
Oh yeah,
Turn it off.
And
just turn it off.
so I asked them 2 questions. What do you think you can do to support moms? They were like, be patient. And I asked them if they think that they would survive 24, 48 hours, 36 hours with this constant pain and increased intensity. And they were like, nope, that's not for me. That's for the mom. So it was just a way to allow them to understand, yes, looking pregnant and dressing up is one thing, but there's an actual job to do when we go into labor, and we need support.
Yes. And did any of the dads feel like, well, women's bodies are built differently for this pain and can handle this
Yeah.
pain?
Yes, they acknowledge that clearly. They were like, "You guys have cramps. You know about this." Like, but I think them just being in that, just sitting in that, because they wanted to be men too. They were like, "I can handle this up to 10," and it goes from level 1 to where it's just a little faint shock. It's not even it's just like a sensation.
Okay.
To 10 where it holds on to your tissue and doesn't let go. So
maybe the next time you're here, I can
try
this out, because I have no idea what they feel like. Again, different birthing experience.
Yes. So even when you brought up your experience, the doula isn't expecting or going to tell you that it's going to go this way. We just want to be there whenever it changes, because everyone experiences labor, and every birth is different. A mom can tell you they have 5 children and each one of those children was different. So we want to meet the mom where they're at. Even if you woke up, we want to be there to help you, to let you know what happened, who was there with your baby, fill you in, because the truth is, in a system right now, in a medical system right now, is very much what's the word? Employed, understaffed.
Yes.
So sometimes you want someone there, but they have administrative work to do. They have another patient to attend to, or 3 or 4. When a doula is there, they are there for you only. So
it's a personalized service. It is
continuous labor support. We don't leave your side.
When does the support end for a doula? Does it end after baby is born, and then it's like, oh, well, you're good, go home and have your baby now? Because I know you spoke about your experience, the postpartum experience. Does the doula experience go into that whole postpartum bit, and what types of support do you provide?
So there are so many different, spectrums of doula work. I focus on childbirth, and I can stay, for me, because it depends on the doula, but I stay around for at least 2 weeks just to make sure that you have settled in. I usually do a visit at the home before you go into labor and one after. Honestly though, you have the birth doula, you have a postpartum doula. There's even doulas that are just there for loss, if there's pregnancy loss or miscarriage. So, and they are trained for those specific things, because
that is hard.
It is hard, and but it happens. So
it is, yes.
So it's not that, and there are also full spectrum doulas that cover the entire thing. Holistic doulas, herbal doulas, that. So it's not just one person, but there are more like trainings that you would have to do to be.
What does the training look like?
Well, my training was self-paced. Some people do it within a year. I did it within a year and a half. What you have to do though is be first aid trained, and you have to attend, for my training, because it's different for different organizations. My training has a lot to do with education. So although I am not going to be doing anything medical, I still have to be aware of medical terms and clinical procedures and medical interventions, so that I can say, this is why they're doing this. For example, here in the hospital, they will give you a Pitocin shot after you've delivered, and that's to make sure that your blood clots and you don't bleed out or you have a hemorrhage. So you probably won't even know that it happens.
Okay.
Because after you push, your body is in shock. There's so many things going on. You're going to be looking for your baby. You're going to make sure that the baby is crying. The midwife is still trying to make sure that the last stage of labor is happening, which is you passing your placenta. People don't even think of that part. Labor isn't finished until you pass your placenta. So you usually get that shot, and I will be just telling you, hey, this is what's going to happen. So it's more about education, letting you know why they're doing these things. And I love it. I honestly do.
I'm so thankful that you know, we have these services that
Mhm.
are available to women because, again, it is a lot of your passion when you're speaking about what got you there. The conversations that don't necessarily happen. If they happen in
Silos,
there is not a platform
Mhm.
for which, and this is why, again, we need to talk, because these conversations are important. It is important that women know that they're not alone, that there are resources, and that there is help available
Yes.
to them, and that there is someone there who is there specifically for you and to get you through this process. And there is nothing that you can compare to the process of pregnancy, labor, and
birth.
that postpartum.
Oh no.
That postpartum period. There is nothing that you can compare it to. It is such
I call it magic. I call it magic.
It is such a unique experience, and the support that you receive during that time
Mhm.
determines what type of experience you have.
Yes, exactly. So even I've had clients where I've had conversations with them and their family members where the mom wants to be, like the mother of the laboring mom wants to be involved, but she doesn't like blood. So it's like, you can do something, but I don't think the birthing room would be the best place for you. And having those difficult conversations, it's not easy, but it's necessary, because part of being a doula is helping you to have a positive birth experience. You hear a lot of moms say they're not going to have another child because of the treatment they got or the support that they received. Oh, I'm so sorry. So, and even it's like statistically proven, moms that had doula support are 28% less likely to have a C-section, 30% less likely to have any medical interventions like being induced. So, and just having a positive birth experience, that is so crucial, because sometimes you leave the hospital helpless. You don't know if you can go back and speak to someone because of the treatment that you have. I can vouch for especially the male midwives in Anguilla. They are really nice. And I think there's nominations coming up soon for
Nurses Week.
Yeah, so I always vote for the male midwives, because we don't have much, but they do an awesome job when it comes to, I call them like the baby whisperers, because they do a really good job.
And they are on the front line, and they're the ones that are there with you, and most times are delivering the baby. And I think when you were speaking earlier about your experience and when you got into the hospital, it brought to mind, well, my experience was a little bit different. I was sharing this with you before we started. I slept. They had me hooked up to these machines, and they were like, oh, you're not feeling that. And I was sleeping, and really and truly, what woke me was screams. I didn't have my baby here. I had my baby in another country that their maternity ward was undergoing renovations at the time.
Wow.
And so it was in this one big open room, and it's separated by curtains. And so it's, let me see if I can paint. So imagine one big open room. There are 8 beds, 4 on each side, and you're separated by a curtain. And then there's like a half wall, and then repeat the step. I think it was like 3 or 4 like this. So I was waking up to screams.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh, there's someone new. She wasn't here when I went to sleep, but she was screaming. And I distinctly remembering the nurse say, please hush, you just reached.
Yep.
Can't start yet. Why are you making so much noise?
Yep.
And she was like, but nurse, I can feel the head.
And that's the thing, like, listen to a mom who's listening to her body.
She's like, I could feel it, it's there. I kid you not. 1 minute later, that baby was gone. Because I was hearing the mom scream, the nurse saying, stop making so much noise. And then it was like, I heard the baby. I'm like, this is madness.
Yep, and it
I
happens.
was scared. I was absolutely
It
scared
happens every single day.
because it was my first time. I've never had a baby before. I'm young, and I'm like, am I gonna have to do this? What is this? I was already petrified. Quite honestly, I was so petrified of what that experience was going to be like. I remember saying to my gynecologist, my OB, and saying to him, how can I get this baby? It's gonna sound stupid. It sounds absolutely stupid because we know baby comes in, baby got to come out. But I was like, so
can I skip that part, please?
How am I going to get this baby out of me? You know, and while the experience that I had wasn't the best experience under the best circumstances, I still to this day, given the outcome, if the outcome had been different, maybe I may have thought of it differently. But given the outcome, I still think that was the best opportunity. And I am not about to test fate. We good. You know, but it is something that, and really having these conversations and letting women know like what to expect. Because I think it's so unfair to send women in and go, oh, you figure it out.
No, and I can attest to even having a client where the dad was frustrated because it was the first time that they both had children. And he was trying so much to help her. She had what we call inverted nipples.
Okay.
So it means that your nipple isn't this way, but it's pushed in. And there are tools that you can use to put, I can't remember the name right now, but she asked a midwife if she can get help on how to position a baby to breastfeed because she was already going in knowing it won't be simple for her. So herself and her husband was like, can we get some help? And was like, you don't need help. You don't know what to do. And it's like, no, we do not. So it's not even, sometimes that's why I said it's not just about the medical outcome, but it's about the experience of being sympathetic or empathetic to the situation and understanding that some people really don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. Exactly. So I've had moms that I know have had miscarriages and they have their baby, they're looking at their baby, but they're not sure if the baby is going to be here forever because they already lost the baby. So it's now, how do I support someone who already has been traumatized? Yes. Who already has anxiety about, will this baby be here with me? Do I hold my breath and wait for the baby to die, literally? They won't say it out loud, but you can see it, and they say it without saying it. And moms need that support. And sometimes dads don't know what to say to support these occurrences. So it's like putting people in place, because what I do as a doula also is make referrals. So I'm not a counselor, but I can make referrals. I think you need X, Y, and Z. Or you can see the nutritionist if you feel like you are not getting enough nutrition while you're breastfeeding. It's a lot of conversations, but my job is to point you in the right direction so that you don't feel like you're alone in this. So postpartum, and almost all my clients know they can reach out to me even afterwards, because it's not about the money, it's about making sure that I know how I felt and I don't want somebody to go down that path again.
How has the reception been from the medical professions to the doula? Do you go, I don't know, the range of services, do you go to clinics with them? Do you attend antenatal clinics? Are you in the room sometimes with them?
I am in the room. That's what continuous labor support looks like. I'm in the room. So I have made good friends with all of the medical practitioners simply because they don't know what a doula is also. And I can empathize with them, because it's like having someone coming to my classroom. I am a teacher, sit in the back of the room and, just looking over you when you don't know. So I had to educate them about what I'm doing also, and they were very receptive because part of my training is to attend boards. So I had to be there to complete my certification. And I also had to ask them questions because I can learn stuff in a book, but then seeing it in practice is completely different. And every system is different also. So it has been very accommodating here.
Okay.
Like I said, shout out to my male midwives at Princess Alexandra Hospital. I haven't been there for the year because I've been doing more research.
Okay.
But I have had a slight pushback or questioning my, what's the word? Like what gives me the authority to advocate or speak on behalf of XYZ. I'm not afraid of that. It's going to be, I know it's going to be hard. That's life. And I also understand this person in this position for so long. Now, here am I coming along to disrupt. But my thing about it is, like I said, different to the US and the UK, where we are the minority. We are here in the Caribbean, and we think because we are usually attended by people that look like us, there is no racism, there's no prejudice.
But medical bias exists.
Implicit bias exists. And you know, sometimes we see it even with our Spanish-speaking population, where we think that they are this way because we just assume things and we don't ask questions. So,
you know, I've never actually thought of that in terms of persons who are coming into the system, who are speaking a different language, and what that language barrier may mean for their experience.
Yeah.
That is...
It's tough. It's very tough. I went to a conference in the UK that talked about implicit bias, and they talked about even language as a barrier, religion as a barrier, your diet as a barrier, where there was a Muslim, Black Muslim, that was, I think she was getting preeclampsia, and they were telling her to change her diet. So they just automatically assume that she eats these things because she's Muslim. But because she was Muslim from a certain geographic background, it was never in her diet. So they never asked her, hey, what do you eat? They just told her not to eat this. So she said, but I already don't eat it. So what is solving it? That's not going to solve my issue. And when it comes to language, speaking louder does not mean that we are speaking the language. You know, we do it all the time.
Yes.
Let me talk slow and loud. No, it doesn't work that way.
Let's see if you understand me. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
How do I say Pitocin in Spanish? Do you think that they know that how do you, like, because there are specific words that I wouldn't know the translation to. So it's like accommodating people and understanding that you do have a bias. You probably don't know that it's there. So we need some classes and, you know, acknowledging it at least.
So I knew this conversation was going to be engaging. I knew that once we got started, we were not going to necessarily stop. But there is one more thing that I want us to get into before we wrap up. And it's a little bit away from the doula, but it makes sense for you. You spoke about completing your master's in public health and
public service management. Health and public service management.
Health and public service management. And I know that your thesis was definitely centered along, and it makes sense. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll know why it's so important.
So I did my final, my dissertation in paternity leave in our public service system. And I interviewed a few male workers and their experience with the entire application process, from applying to get on paternity leave, to get up on paternity leave, and, you know, just how it was going into the 2 weeks. So 2 weeks is what all men in Anguilla get for once they're working for a certain amount of time from their employer, and it was very eye-opening. And I did it because, going back to me wanting to make sure that men are a part of the conversation, I thought it would be very appropriate to come from that perspective. Paternity leave is actually very new across the world, and it is commendable for Anguilla to roll out paternity leave, because we are the only Eastern Caribbean island that offers paternity leave for both private and public sector workers. Jamaica just rolled it out in January.
Okay.
So
we've had it for,
I think, 6 years, 2018. How long is that? 7 years?
Oh,
I don't know.
COVID has taken so many
Yes,
years that I stopped. I don't know the years in between.
But
there.
you do the math. So my thing was, I wanted to just ask men how they feel about paternity leave. And one thing that stuck out to me, well, 3 things. They don't feel that 2 weeks is enough. They do not feel supported by their department, and they have very fluctuating emotions throughout the entire process, from the time that they know that they're having a child, to feeling helpless because they don't know how to support their partner, to feeling frustrated on how to balance their work life, from leaving the work to going home, then going back to work, and feeling as if it wasn't enough time. They're just figuring it out. Sometimes their partner had complications, their child had complications. 2 weeks is not enough time. So I have been strongly advocating for a revision of how we apply paternity leave. Our fathers right now have to take vacation to attend their child's birth, because in order to get paternity leave, you have to have the birth certificate to apply for it. So that's after the fact. So I don't think fathers should be taking vacation.
Yeah. And just to balance the conversation for persons who may be listening outside of here, we as women, we get 13
weeks? 14 weeks?
Yeah. 13
I
or
took
14.
extra time because it's still not enough time.
Right.
And I could have afforded to do it. And I would advocate for anyone to take extra time away
if they can.
But I really don't. I think it's 13 to 14 weeks.
Somewhere there. Yes.
Yep.
So, Valinda, thank you so much, Valinda.
I have to come back.
Valindula.
Yes, that's me.
Thank you so very much for being here with us today. It has been definitely educational. I hope that anyone who has listened, that they've taken something away from this conversation, and they're better prepared and know where to come.
Yes.
And what services they can access.
Yes.
From Bare Necessities, the Caribbean doula, to help you to advocate during the most vulnerable period of a woman's life.
The most vulnerable, magical time ever.
Yes.
And I just want to say congratulations to any of you out there delivering. You can follow me at Caribbean Doula. You can send me a message. I'm only here to help and to help you to advocate for yourself. So thank you for having me also, Geneva.
All right. So this has been a wonderful episode of We Need to Talk. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms, like, subscribe, share, and we'll be back next week with another episode because, as always, we need to talk.